Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is U.S. Immigration Attorney Hardam Tripathy from Trip Law. We're very excited to share with you a really important question that we're getting a lot here at our law office regarding, hey, I'm an immigrant, I'm applying for a certain type of work permit based on the superseding case, and ultimately my work permit's getting delayed. For example, I have a U visa that I've applied for, and for some reason the work permit keeps getting delayed. What do I do, attorney? Well, this video is going to address that. And we're going to discuss how do you as an immigrant deal with work permit delays when you're applying at the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. So before we get started, it's important to understand what is a work permit. A work permit authorizes you to legally work in the United States while your application is pending or soon thereafter. Now, usually you're going to get a receipt notice that's going to talk about that the government basically got the case, and it's going to have your receipt number that's going to be found on this form called the Form I-797 Notice of Action. You want to look at that form and you want to find that receipt number that's on that form because that's the number you're going to use to check the progress of your case. So before we even get into what we can do about expediting these requests, you also have to understand that there's processing times, and you have to understand what are processing times. Well, these are the reasonable times, a certain date range or certain amount of months that the USCIS officer can take as long as it's what's considered reasonable processing time. They have that reasonable processing time to basically work on the case and issue that work permit. But what happens when it goes beyond that reasonable processing time, and what basic things can you do as the immigrant to speed that processing time up? Or if it's fallen beyond the reasonable processing times, what can you do? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today, and we're going to jump right in. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go on USCIS.gov, or you can go just type in on Google, just type in what are the reasonable processing times for this case, and it'll actually show you when you enter in the receipt number or even the case status type, which we'll make a video on at a later date. You'll actually see what the reasonable processing time is for that specific type of case. And so if your reasonable processing time, for example's sake, is 6 months, but it's now taken 7 months, it has now fallen 1 month beyond the reasonable processing time. So that means because it's outside of normal processing times, you as the immigrant can now take action on that case to expedite the matter. So what you want to usually do is you want to start off by calling the USCIS hotline number. And that's the number you can find online. Just type in USCIS customer service and you'll find the phone number there. You want to call that number, and there's a video that we've actually posted prior that explains how to get to an actual real person to speak with them on the phone. But what you want to do is you want to contact USCIS. They're going to ask some basic information to verify that you are indeed the immigrant whose case is being handled. Or if you have the attorney, our law office would be happy to help you navigate that complex process on the phone. But you would call the USCIS, they're going to ask for your name, your date of birth, your address, and they're going to ask for that receipt number related to your work permit. So when that information is technically provided to them, then the agent or that officer is going to be called a Tier 1 officer. That's the first person that you basically get in contact with who's going to look up what's going on with your case. So once you contact them, you want to then give them the information, be very thorough and honest about what's going on with your case and answer any questions they have. And then you want to provide more detailed info by then requesting a Tier 2 officer, which is basically a supervisory officer who will then actually be the one who will work on the matter, and you can basically request that Tier 2 request. Now, once you do that, within about 30 to 60 days from that time point, you will then get an email or a letter in the mail basically explaining to you what the status of the case is and what they are doing to work on expediting that request. You can actually, if you're one of these types of immigrants, maybe someone who falls in one of these categories that the work permit's based on, you can actually claim that you have either severe financial loss, or you can talk about humanitarian reasons for why they should expedite your case. Or if you're a nonprofit and you work in the nonprofit space, you can actually use that as a rationale to speed up the case. And you also, if it's something that's in the national interest, for example, something like that would be like, for example, when COVID was happening and you were a nurse and you needed to work, it'd be in the national interest to have that healthcare provider who's considered essential to then work. So these are called national interests. And then if there's government requests that you can make. So this basically will be criteria that USCIS uses to expedite that case. And we at our firm will make sure we argue that on your behalf. And if a legal brief is needed, we will definitely reach out to that USCIS officer and USCIS to make sure that that gets done. Furthermore, what you can also do to make sure you're dotting your I's, crossing your T's is contact your congressperson. The congressman or congresswoman will be definitely pivotal in helping you basically expedite the case, because what you can do is basically complete what's called a privacy authorization form with your congressperson, and then based on the jurisdiction or the address where you live, and they will then serve as your liaison to communicate with USCIS to make sure that they can help you have a smoother and a more efficient and expeditious way to get that work permit. So they'll inquire to USCIS on your behalf, and they'll help with any urgent delays that have occurred, especially when travel is involved and things of that nature. So there's always a website you can find your representative on house.gov, and you can actually put in your address and it'll show you that. But we as your law firm and as your attorney will also help you with that process as well. And then things that you want to kind of avoid, right? There's always going to be things with authorization you want to avoid. So one of those is you don't obviously want to work without that valid employment authorization document, because if you do so, you do work without that authorization, it can create serious issues on the back end later on down the road. But you want to know basically that ultimately this is a process. It does take time. Usually it's something where, you've done all this good work that you can and now you're waiting. Well, you can always at the very end, if it really gets to that point, you can follow what's called a writ of mandamus. That's where you're basically suing the government to basically do their job and make a decision. Now, this does not mean that they're going to approve or deny your case like that, but it just means that they have to make a decision. So that's something that our law firm also helps with. We're working on a couple cases right now, actually, where we can sue the government on your behalf to basically push the needle forward, to basically tell USCIS, hey, a decision needs to be made. So that's something that a federal district court judge could require. So I hope this video helped. If you or your loved ones are suffering with respect to basically getting your EAD, your employment authorization document, work permit, basically go through that process and you need it expedited, please feel free to give our law firm a call. Our phone number here is 863-599-6735. We're more than happy to help you, walk you through this process and expedite that work permit so you can get to work, you can help pay taxes here in the United States to show your good moral character, and continue to provide for your loved ones and yourself. So thank you so much for your time. This is U.S. Immigration Attorney Hardam Tripathy, and we look forward to assisting you with your immigration dream. Thank you.